2021. I think our next order of business, Denise, is to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Amelia Williams.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson. Kevin Flores.
Here.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fujiroos.
Here.
Ernest Cate.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item 4, this is the agenda item that the council makes available each council meeting to hear comments from our citizens. If we have anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda, then feel free to come to the microphone. Please clearly state your name and address. And we ask also that you keep your comments brief and understand that the council won't take action tonight on anything that you bring forward. Is there anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda? All right, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Council, if there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item 6, Wyman, this is this in their packet, or does Scott need to do any kind of formal report or anything? It's informational that we're required to do every year. Okay? So you'll take notice of that at the cash balances as of December 31 for the Springdale Public Facilities Board. If anyone have any questions about that?
So noted.
So noted. Thank you, sir. All right. Item 7, I'm going to turn over to Ernest for the public hearing.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
No.
Barely.
Just get right in it, and we'll probably be all right.
On item number 11 on the agenda is an ordinance calling for the annexation of certain lands into the city of Springdale that are completely surrounded. There's 9 parcels, primarily at the roundabout at Don Tyson Parkway and Haberton Road. We'll be taking the item up as item number 11 on the agenda, but the statute requires that we conduct a public hearing before we hear or consider the ordinance. So is there anyone here that wishes to address this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
All right. Thank you, Ernest. Item 8, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
For A and B.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for A and B. Roll call, please.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fujiroos.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 9, Planning Commission report and recommendations by Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development. Patsy?
The first item on the agenda is the proposed amendment to Chapter 56 that we discussed at the joint work session between Planning Commission and City Council. Those have been put into ordinance form, and I can a lot of it is just cleaning up some of the language as much as anything else, but I can go through all those details. You'll notice in the ordinance anything that is underlined is added, and anything that is stricken through is deleted from the ordinance. Basically, we changed the goals to say we want to preserve and utilize mature canopy where existing, and we've been able to do that on several occasions with some of our large-scale development plans. We've made changes into that this becomes applicable if approved after the date of March 25th. It's when we originally adopted in 2003, and we do that in there so we know exactly when all this thing started. We have made a little bit of changes into the perimeter landscaping and kind of clarified the drawing. There was some confusion about how all that was going to work. What happened to my pictures? Oh, there they are.
It
No.
timed out, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
Somebody need to go
let's
shake
see.
the mouse.
Okay, let me see.
Okay.
I got it with me. Let's see. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, that's the changes in the drawings themselves. We changed the word from well, we needed a typographical error. It needed to say alternative methods of compliance. We took Bradford pears off as a species of trees that you can use, because we have a list of trees that are the recommended list. We took Bradford pears off of those because those are not considered to be, they're
You'll be happy to know I'm taking one out of my yard
Okay.
in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I've got most of them
I'm
out of
not.
my yard now, too,
Okay.
so. And then we changed a typo in the section about screening, and that's basically all the changes that we've done to that. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing, recommends approval of this ordinance amendment. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending Chapter 56 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Okay.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second that.
We have a motion, and a second. Further discussion, or
Do you have that in front of you, Patsy?
I do.
I don't know if your pages are similar to ours, but on page 18, on the tree choices,
Uh-huh.
hideous. Bradford Pear not still on there?
Bradford Pears is stricken through to come off.
Wait,
Anything that has a line through it means it's being
It's not
deleted.
stricken
It's
in
not
ours.
stricken through here.
It actually, when Beth scanned it in, she sent a revised one out today. I think when she scanned it in, it didn't, for some reason,
yeah, we were having trouble scanning everything in right.
it really is in, I may have brought it with me.
Yeah,
It really is-
glad-
It really is stricken through, it just didn't,
Okay.
and there's another one here, it didn't,
What's
show
the
up on
other,
here
what's
either.
the other one?
but it is on there.
I have the copy that Ernest sent me that it shows it's there. I don't know what she used to scan
It
in,
just,
but
for some reason, when it got scanned in, it did a bunch of crazy.
Yeah, there are page numbers and everything.
the whole thing was really hard to read, yeah, yeah.
She sent an email today with it attached, and hopefully
Mm-hmm.
that was better.
There's a copy of the sheet that we have in the ordinance itself that shows that Bradford Pierce is stricken through.
What's the, I'm curious, what's the other one, Ernest?
I was just looking through
It's
this.
stricken through.
And I noticed one of the typos on section 8, it's changed from form to from.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
From is underlined, but form's not stricken through. It didn't, for some reason, the strike-throughs didn't show up when it got scanned in, but they are there.
Okay.
No, Patsy, I don't know that this is dealt with anywhere in here, but it's something that just bothers me all the time is when you see, we have this requirement on new construction sites that certain amount of trees have to be planted. And then you'll see these maybe pin oak trees being planted right underneath power lines. And we know what's going to happen in 10 years.
We have tried in the last several years to work with them to get species put underneath those power lines do not grow to that height. I mean, they can be trimmed down and stayed under there, but we have been working with developers trying to get those listed as the type that they should use in those locations. By the same token, then we have some water lines and sewer lines and easements that we don't want them to have deep roots, and we work with water and sewer to be able to do that. Because we don't want to put them in and have to cut them down because of something. That doesn't make any sense. And so we didn't address that in here, and maybe we may need to go back and make that a little more clear, but usually we just do it as discussion with the developer and with the electric company and the utility companies as we work through those projects. And sometimes they can just be moved back a little bit and be out of the way, too. So,
Okay. Well, I think we just need to pay close attention to that because it just seems like a total waste of
yeah,
trees when
Yeah.
you know they're going to be chopped down someday.
I agree, I agree.
Trees do grow. Yeah.
Or we do not want them, where they got the middle cut out of them or one side's cut flat.
Right,
That doesn't do any
right.
good either, so we're trying to keep that
Yeah.
from happening as we go through these new development processes, too, so.
All right, other questions, comments? Anyone? We have a motion and a second. All right. Denise?
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right, and I know we've got several planning commissioners here, and Patsy, thanks to the planning commission and to you and your staff for all this work on this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The next item is a replat of lots 14 and 15 of Block 2 of Carter Edition. This is over on Young Street. Planning Commission reviewed this replat, recommends approval. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance accepting the replat of lots 14 and 15, Block 2, Carter addition to the City of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay?
Now, I believe last meeting, we
We rezoned.
We
rezoned
rezoned
it.
this property, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Move the ordinance passed.
We had a motion. Do you got a second, Brian?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Thank you.
Was there anybody here that needed to speak on this one?
Yeah, we'll find out. Jumped ahead of me there.
Yeah, we didn't have any comments at the rezoning.
No comments? Nobody needs to speak? Okay.
There he is. He's right there. Okay.
All right. Roll call, please.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
And the emergency clause was added due to pending actions on those pieces of property. The next item is really from the CDBG committee. We presented to you at the last committee meeting our recommendations for use of the CARES Act Version 3 money. We are receiving $445,382 in this round. We received money in the first round of $478,318, and there was a second round that we didn't get any money in, but this is our second allocation, but it's actually the third round. And so the funds to be distributed that we are recommending is Northwest Arkansas Food Bank, $139,283, Dinners for Veterans, $20,000, Arkansas Crisis Center, $100,000, Returning Home, $58,183, Epico Center, Northwest Arkansas, $56,200, Hope Distributors, $50,000, Community Clinic, $21,716. And that's our recommended distribution of the funds. Title of the resolution reads, "A resolution adopting and approving the 2019 amended action plan for CARES Act Version 3, known as CV3." And there was some discussion and Kevin, you may want to address this, or I can, some discussion about providing direct assistance to the Marshallese and some of those. We went to new organizations who had used up the money that we had previously provided for them. This money comes with a lot of different kinds of regulations and reporting requirements, and we want to make sure that the money can be used as it's supposed to be. So if you haven't used up all of the first round money, we didn't come back to you to the second round. We don't know if there's going to be a third round or not, so.
Yeah, no, we don't know if there's going to be a fourth round as well.
No.
But
Yeah, I'm sorry, fourth round.
just, we spoke about this in committee, but there's two repeat nonprofits that's Returning Home and the Community Clinic that received additional rounds on the, with CV3. And I spoke with Dean, you know, with the Marshallese community getting hit so hard with this pandemic. Some nonprofits that focus within the Marshallese community received funding on the first round. They haven't not spent all their money, so they're not eligible for this second round. But if we happen to get an additional round, we'll reach out to them and assure that they know the protocol as far as that they have to have all this spent before they can receive additional funding. And same applies with the one I see here that stands out is Rooted NWA, which helps out Latino families as well. So I think Dean's done a good job of reaching out. We can do a few things here and there as far as promoting and advocacy, but I like where this is going.
And he's working directly with those organizations to make sure they understand what are the requirements, because what we don't want is anybody to have to pay the money back either. And so we're working with those on a regular basis to make sure it gets done that way too. So.
Okay. Good. Did we get a motion and second on this?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion to pass.
I second
Second.
that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Anybody in the room need to speak to this? All right, Denise.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Mayor, do you want to address the reappointments, or do you want me to go through them?
I can do it, and I'll read this resolution. Thank you, Patsy. Item D, a resolution approving reappointments to the Springdale Planning Commission. I'm asking that we reappoint 3 existing planning commissioners for their terms that are about to expire: Gary Compton, Ben Peters, and Dale Tyler. And I've read the resolution.
I move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? All right, Denise?
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. And again, thanks everyone for your willingness to continue to serve. Item 10, Finance Committee Report, Chairman Jeff Watson. Jeff?
Finance Committee met last Monday evening, and the first item, I'll read the title to the ordinance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to enter into an agreement with the Springdale Chamber of Commerce to promote business development and economic growth, to waive competitive bidding, and for other purposes. I believe there was a $25,000 increase to the amount that we had given in the past, and that ordinance was forwarded to council with recommendation for approval.
Move ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Has emergency clause.
Move emergency clause to be adopted.
Second.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
Item 10B, because of the forwarding of the ordinance that we just passed, increased the amount of contribution, or not contribution, payment to the chamber by $25,000. That required a budget amendment, so, which is taken care of by resolution. The title of that resolution is a resolution amending the 2021 budget of the city administration, and that resolution was forwarded to the council with recommendation for approval.
Move resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further comments or questions? Anyone? All right, Denise?
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
Item 10C was also a resolution that had to do with the new roof on the Shiloh Meeting Hall, roof repair. That resolution's title is a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction contract for Shiloh Meeting Hall roof repairs and appropriating funds, CP 2002. The amount of the cost of those repairs for the roof is $54,586.26. That resolution was forwarded to council by the Finance Committee with recommendation for approval.
Make a motion that the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other comments or questions?
Did we talk about who was going to be in charge of the inspection of this project?
It'll be the architect, correct, Wyman? Gary Clement?
Yes,
Okay, there's Alan. Hey, Alan.
yes. And we're having all materials come to the museum before they start the project and be inspected.
So we'll be the architect.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We did, didn't we? Any other questions or comments? Okay, Denise?
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
The next two resolutions were dealt with amendments to the contracts for the construction of the Springdale Municipal Complex project. That's item 10D and 10E. They're listed in our agenda in reverse order of the way we dealt with them at the Finance Committee meeting. Item 10D, the title to that resolution is a resolution authorizing the execution of a change order for the construction contract for the Springdale Municipal Complex project number 18BPC1. A lot of discussion on this, the changing of the contract with the construction manager, Milestone Construction Company, for purposes of payment of change orders, and also there was discussion about the addition of the community room on the south side of the building. In our agenda that was sent out, I noticed that it's indicated that the resolution was forwarded to council with recommendation for approval, and I believe that Randall made that motion, but I don't believe there was a recommendation for approval, so correct me if I'm wrong, Randall. I tried to pay very close attention. I tried to pay very close attention to that because we had dealt with item 10E prior to 10D, and we specifically talked about forwarding to council with no recommendation, and then when Randall made his motion, he was silent on any recommendation, as I recall, Mayor. And that's why I voted forward to council, so I think that's a mistake.
I guess we'd have to go back and look at it, but
Not that it really matters,
D
but
was forwarded with a recommendation for approval, my understanding, and E was forwarded with no recommendation, and E was where the discussion was about whether to recommend or not.
that's true, Mayor. I appreciate your recollection, but I respectfully disagree with it.
Okay.
And there was discussion on item E. The original motion was made to forward to council with recommendation for approval. That motion was changed after discussion to forward to council without recommendation. When Randall made the motion, he was silent on any recommendation. He just made the motion to forward to council. How do you recall that? And not that it really matters.
I
We're still
don't,
gonna
I don't
address
recall
it.
the words, but I recommend that, I did the motion for the larger line item to continue with the expansion.
Ernest, you usually take notes on that. Do you remember what you,
Well,
because I recollect the way that it is presented here, that the architect contract had no recommendation and the construction contract was recommended for approval.
that was my recollection as well, because the construction contract dealt with the addition of this.
Right.
It also dealt with payment of the construction manager for expenses due to the delays of the construction.
I remember you making the point, but I believe it was after it was motioned for recommendation for approval that you said, I just want everybody to know, yes, it deals with the end of the building, but it also deals with the extra time and the change order. So, that's how I remember it. So, anyway, like you say,
Anyway,
at the
the
end of the day,
resolution is
it doesn't
before,
matter.
the resolution was forwarded to the council for further discussion. Did I read the title? I think I did, yes.
I'll make a motion that the resolution pass on 10D.
We have a motion.
And again, this is just a change order, for the additions for this south building.
And the change order, it's the change order for that. Remember, you had two different resolutions options. One included, they were both the change orders. One was for $222,000.
Right.
That did not include this. You forwarded the one that did include this. So it's the
Correct.
222,000 in change orders approximately, and the approximately 503,000, I think, for this bill, for this room.
Mayor, I think that 222,000 was coming out of the general fund, and actually, the change orders by the city was 287,705, and the time and extended overhead charges for Milestone was 426,921.
True, but we had a balance of over 500,000 in the construction bond, and that's why the change orders were for 222 plus the 503 for the room.
Where'd the number 222 come from?
I'm going from memory there,
Okay.
Jeff.
It's
I wrote the note down,
287.
that's what's coming out.
If you look at page
General
4 of 5 of the architect's letter, it breaks the numbers down at the top of page 4 of 5.
Right.
It's 287,705
That's from the notes
owner
on it.
requested changes. Yeah.
Okay.
And the 222 is what we were going to take out of the general fund.
Okay.
And they said the general fund, we have approximately 12 or
Approximately 12 million.
12 million, correct?
The, we've not gone in detail publicly over these several changes that are in this one change order. This is the first change, this is change order number 1. Hopefully it's the only change order. You'll notice as you look through that list, some were negative change orders, a couple were negative change orders that saved money, but the cumulative amount is what is being presented here. I would challenge anyone to go through those change orders and disagree with the need for each of those. Now, I think that I think Jeff made the point several times. His issue was with the time.
Well, Mayor, had we not already authorized you to approve change orders?
You have, as long as the money's in the contingency and it's not over 10% of the cost of the project. But because of the cumulative amount of these change orders, the money was not in the contingency, and
Okay.
that's why it's come to you.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. Okay.
I think there was some frustration about lack of communication along the way with that, so maybe, I think, if you put that aside, look to the future for that, but
And
outside of that, I just don't see a problem with it.
I'll take the lack of communication as constructive criticism. I could inundate you with things. I need to know what you want to know and what you don't. But we could do better updating along the way as these changes came forward. Again, vast majority of them suggested by city staff, things like additional conduit for IT, things like ballistic windows in the briefing room for the PD on the bottom floor. A lot of things having to do with the radio. You know, I mentioned as we began our tour, the radio tower, which thankfully is not hooked up to anything yet, has already been hit by lightning. One of these change orders is for grounding for that.
Sure.
For that. So, again, I don't think any of these changes are anything that anyone would disagree with. And I also, in talking with people who do a lot of large projects, this is a large building for us. We haven't built a $35 million building. And I am assured by others in the industry that I talk to that this amount of change orders for this size of job is minuscule, absolutely minuscule. And so if there's needs to be better communication, I will be happy to supply that. But again, you know, I don't know until you ask what all we need to be bringing forward. I know that the residents of Springdale expect us to be very good stewards of the tax dollars that they supply to us. and I take that as seriously as anyone, but I also know the residents of Springdale expect us to pay what we owe and treat our vendors correctly, treat them right. And so if you have, Roy, when we get to the architecture part, Sam, Greg are here from Milestone. So if you have questions about whether this is right or not, those are questions for them. I believe it is. I believe they've been good partners throughout this process. I believe they've worked hard to save us money and save us time when they could. These are extraordinary times. I get tired of hearing that, probably just like you do, but the facts are the facts. So who do you want to talk to?
I think my heartache on it was just the amount of days leading to the amount of dollars that was, it may have been foreseeable for, like Wyman probably knew, but, you know, us knowing from that.
Well, we really didn't know the number of
Right.
days until shortly before we brought them to you.
Sure.
We were waiting on all that to be calculated and brought up and brought together and put together in a change order so we could handle it all at once.
Well, and I'll go along with Randall. I don't think we need to know every single delay when it happens, but routine updates as far as the delays, just so when we get hit with a number, it's not as overwhelming, and so that we can keep track of this as well.
Well, we'll have to count on our architect to help us calculate those and keep more of a running total on them.
But I do agree, you know, any work done, we should compensate them for. I don't think that's an issue. It's just a few things here and there that we can tweak.
Okay.
I'll make a second.
I don't have a question about the change orders that the city made. You know, that makes sense, but I can't make sense of this $426,921. Basically, as I understand it, we're paying the contractor because his supplier didn't supply him with his materials, and I don't see how that's the problem of the city.
Sam, would you like to, you guys feel free to address any of these questions.
I'm going to take this off. Well, Mike, I mean, I understand your question, and this is not a situation to where the city is paying for what the supplier did or did not do. The problem is, and it's outlined in our contract, that when there is something that happens that is beyond the contractor's control, and that extends to our suppliers as well, when we have a pandemic. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Speak right into it, though.
Yep. So when you have a pandemic like we've had, and the governor of the state of Mississippi puts a shelter-in-place order, and the supplier has to shut down operations, and then his crews were also affected by the COVID virus, and so when their plant is shut down, and then when they tried to come back around to open it back up again, a lot of the employees would not come back to work because they were getting paid more to stay at home than they were to come back to the plant. So all of this accumulated over several months that is out of our control. It's out of the precast supplier's control. So it's a worldwide pandemic. So what that did is that our precast was supposed to be delivered in May, and we didn't get it delivered, well, April and May, and it wasn't delivered until August and September. So those delays, we still have people there, and we were able to keep the job moving, but the job itself was only moving at 50% capacity because the critical path of the job is to get slab in, structure up, walls in, and then a roof so we can dry in the building and continue. So it is outlined in the general conditions of the contract.
I read the contract. What page was that on? I didn't, what section?
This is in the general conditions of the contract, which is a separate document from what, if you look on the contract, it says this contract is governed by general conditions 1.3 of the contract. So you have to refer to the general conditions, which is a whole separate document that governs the contract that we are working through. And it basically says If the contractor is delayed at any time in the commencement of the progress of the work by an act or neglect of the owner or architect or of an employee of either or a separate contractor employed by the owner or by changes ordered in the work or by labor disputes, fire, unusual delay in deliveries.
So you're saying that contractor is employed by the city, not by you as the general
No,
contractor?
no, sir, that's not is what I'm saying.
Is that what you were saying?
No, sir, that is not what I said. It says, it gives 10 different reasons for it.
I
It
know,
says-
but you said if it's employed by the city.
No, that is just giving one of the reasons that a
I know,
contractor
but
could
what
ask
I'm-
for that. But I'm not saying that the city hired us. We hired the precast supplier. But
Exactly.
it specifically says if there are unusual delays in deliveries of materials, which this is the reason that we've had the delay. Now, part of those 287 days, 80 of them are weather, 30 some odd or for various other changes. And so it's more like 180 or 170 something.
And you were working during those 287 days, right?
Yes, we spent on our dime to go in and build all the walls, those exterior plastic walls that we hadn't anticipated doing. And we were able to operate and keep the job going. The other option, Mike, was to shut the job down. I mean, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep the progress going, doing everything we can.
Yeah.
So,
And I understand, but where I have the problem with charging the taxpayers almost $500,000, when you were actually working on the job, I'm finding it hard. I can't.
the contract is based on time, on a certain amount of work. So if
And
you
it was-
add.
It was
so if-
guaranteed maximum price,
Yes,
wasn't
sir.
it?
If you look at it's a guaranteed maximum price and it's a guaranteed amount of time. So let's just say in a perfect world, we didn't have unusual weather, which we did. It's documented that we did. If we didn't have the changes that were requested by the various agencies involved and we didn't have the COVID pandemic, there's no way in the world you could agree to grant extra time. But when you add those things in, which are outside of the control of Milestone Construction Company, we are penalized by months and months of having people there that, Mike, we're only able to work at like 50% capacity,
I
not.
understand.
Not,
And I can understand not penalizing you for days over the contract due to that, but I'm just perplexed at $426,921 because of delays in getting the concrete slabs.
That's part of it. But what I explained earlier, part of it is weather, part of it is other changes, and part of it is from COVID.
Those
So-
other changes that the city made is reflected in that $287,705.
It's the changes, the 287 days include weather delays, other changes that were asked and requested by the owner, and the pandemic that we've experienced when a plant is shut down.
So I think what Mike was asking there is you gave three reasons: the weather delays, the delays caused by changes made, requested by owner, and the COVID delays. I think what Mike was asking you is those expenses for number two, the delays for changes made by owner, are those charges not reflected in this first item, owner requested changes, $287,000?
They would be.
I see what he's asking. Yeah.
They would be.
No, there is no extended general conditions or supervision or anything in those changes. It's just the actual cost of the work.
So those are two different things for owner, two different charges as a result of owner requested changes.
Yes, one is for the actual work, and then the other is part of the extended general conditions that we've asked for as part of
Okay.
this 400.
And so, and I want to make sure, again, everyone's clear that if we're all looking at these numbers on this page, architect's letter, page 4, top of page 4, the 426,921 is not all milestone time delay costs. That includes approximately 135,000 that's requested by the architect. No? You sure?
No, the architects is a completely separate issue.
That 426 doesn't have anything to do with the architect?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
I thought it was included in there.
No, it's 400, and then the architect has a separate.
Separate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know.
So you've got time and extended overhead cost. Is there a breakout between what the time cost is and the extended overhead cost is?
Is there a breakout between, say that again, please?
It says time and extended overhead cost. So apparently your overhead cost was y'all taking it on yourselves to wrap and enclose? Is that what
No,
I'm?
that is basically the extended general conditions. About 300, I think about 300,000 of that is just based off salaries. Okay, we've had a full team out there, and that's what it's basically based off of. The other 100 and whatever, 120
Thanks.
is based off equipment rental, trucks, other things that are tangible that aren't incorporated with the labor. And our labor is a lot more than the 300,000 that we've expended. That is just what we felt like was a fair number based off the amount of time that we were delayed based off weather, the other changes, and COVID.
So Sam, and this is not your fault, but the contract that you're referring to is the standard form of agreement between owner and construction manager as contractor, correct? That's the contract?
Yes, sir. It's A133-2009.
Correct. Okay. So when you called and tried to explain to me what you're trying to explain now, I was having difficulty receiving that contract, and so I was a little bit in the dark in our discussions. I was later able to get a copy provided by the city. However, and that was going to be one of my questions, the copy that I got did not have the general conditions of contract for construction attached to it. So, you know, I asked you, so that's in the contract. That's in the contract that you have the right to ask for that additional charges. And now you tell me it is. Unfortunately, I was unable to tell that from the documents that I received because that document that you're saying is a separate document, the general conditions of contract, was not attached to what I was provided. So, our city has a city attorney's office that has to advise. I'm a lawyer, but I was not hired or elected by the people to read these contracts and to give legal opinions. So I have to rely on our city attorney's office, who that is their job. And so, Ernest, what I'm asking you is, this is a guaranteed maximum price contract. Sam is saying, yeah, it's guaranteed maximum price. However, there are exceptions to that rule. What I'm asking you is, are we obligated? I get that we're obligated to pay the $287,705 for owner requested changes. That, to me, that seems pretty obvious. The one that I still have problems with, though, is the time delay being our obligation. And my question under this contract, is the city obligated for that under this general conditions of contract for construction, or just generally under the contract? Or is that our obligation?
I believe it is, and as he stated in section 1.3 of the contract with Milestone. It does incorporate the general conditions. It's incorporated by reference.
Yeah.
May not be necessarily attached, but it's incorporated by reference. And what Mr. Hollis was referencing was the.
You have those general conditions, because I didn't get them.
I have the section that he's referring to, general conditions, delays and extensions of time, and they do read or, they're not and one of them is, or other causes that the contractor asserts and the architect determines justify delay, then the contract time shall be extended for such reasonable time as the architect may determine. And it's a section that deals with delays and extensions of
But
time.
does that say that we have to pay for those?
Well,
I mean, I understand they can be delayed.
it says that the contract itself that you were provided also talks about in section 5, adjustments to the guaranteed maximum price on account of changes in the work subsequent to the execution of the contract may be determined by these methods. And it makes reference to these methods. So, yes, it does address changes in scope of the contract, additions, deletions, or other revisions. It's a pretty comprehensive language that gives quite a bit of flexibility, especially on bigger projects such as this.
Ernest, why would not 5.2.1 carry the day?
Anywhere it says that the contract sum shall not exceed the guaranteed maximum price.
The extent of the cost of the work exceeds the guaranteed maximum price. The construction manager shall bear such costs in excess of the guaranteed maximum price without reimbursement or additional compensation from the owner.
Right, but if you read the next section, it says that the guaranteed maximum price is subject to additions and deductions by change order, which is what's before you.
I understand the change order.
Right.
But where was the change order about the paying for time and extended overhead?
It's included in this change order.
There's a change
number one.
order showing that?
It's included in this
This-
change order number 1.
What y'all are discussing is the change order. It's change order number 1.
Change order is that we agree to pay for delays? Is that what that change order is?
Oh, the change order is the delays, and Ernest is saying if they present it to us, we got to pay it. That's exactly what he just said.
The change order is the delays.
Yeah.
No, it includes.
It includes
the
that,
delays.
but
delays.
It's not just that. It's several things.
Well, it's the changes that the city made.
So is it appropriate to have delays in a change order?
That's how you change the guaranteed maximum price.
That's how you change the
That's the
time.
contractual
Time
method to
or
do
money has to be issued through a change order
Again, for unforeseen
for unforeseen.
things.
I think that's the problem I've got, the unforeseen, and I can't get my head wrapped around this, it's just as unforeseen for us. And when we talk about the taxpayers, I'm not trying to not pay anybody, but this deal we're in the middle of, we didn't see it either, taxpayers didn't see it, Sam didn't see it. I just don't know where it just automatically is us.
Well, since you're the owner of the project, and
I get it.
I pay taxes in Springdale just like everybody else. I'm a taxpayer. So we are building this project for the city of Springdale. It's being funded by the city of Springdale, okay? If there is a delay that's beyond, we are just the construction manager that's managing the process of building this project. If there are time delays and money delays that are beyond my control, the only person to pay that is the person that we are building this project for, because you are ultimately responsible, meaning we are ultimately responsible as far as the city of Springdale. That is the way contracts are all written. I mean, that is, now if, to go back to what I said earlier, had there not been the pandemic, had there not been unusual weather, had there not been other changes other than just some minor changes, the city would not be responsible for that, because we are bound by time in a certain budget. But when that is extended beyond our control, you can't expect the contractor to pay for that, because if that's the case, if we tried to bid a job and figure any kind of act of God that could happen, any kind of unusual weather, any kind of, nobody even thought about a pandemic, but we could have added 6 months onto this project. And you would say, well, why is this, instead of being 700 days, why is it 1,000 days? Well, we're just figuring that we might have run into some problems down the road. That doesn't, you can't do that when you are looking at a project. You can look at normal weather. You can't look at a pandemic. I mean, that's something beyond anybody's control.
So Sam, in justification for this, it says in the contract that the construction manager shall also keep and make available to the owner and architect a daily log containing a record of each day of weather, portions of the work in progress, number of workers on site, identification of equipment on site, and problems that might affect progress of work, accidents, injuries, and other information required by the owner. Is that documentation available?
Absolutely. We do a
And-
weekly report.
And has it been presented to the city in y'all's?
Absolutely it has. We submit a weekly report at the end of every week that shows what our manpower was, what the weather was like, what progress was made weekly, and that's submitted to the architect, it's submitted to certain
We could,
people
that's
involved.
a good example, Brian, of what we could just, you could send that to the council too.
And we'd be
Yeah.
happy to.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to.
We get a weekly
So-
report on this building, on the parks, on the roads.
That we have on site, what they're doing, or what they did, what they're gonna do next week. You know, it gives you daily weather that we throw in about half dozen or 8 photos showing different progress throughout the project.
That's something, to pat Milestone on the back, that's something they do better than any other contractor we've worked with. And we'll be happy to pass those along to you.
As we stated before, I guess some of the frustrations we're having is, and we don't mind paying the contractor on all these $1 million estimates that have been coming through. But then for one meeting, then we're hit with all this, and there's just so many questions that we have. And that's the main driver of this. And I just want to make sure that all the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted, because this $426,000, the rest of the stuff, I don't think any member, I can't speak for everybody, but I don't think any member of the council has any problem with the top 3. It's just that time and extended overhead cost that's a little bit worrisome based off of the trends that we have seen from the start to last committee meeting.
Sam, can you help us, or Greg or Roy, help the council understand why this is, why it's been calculated and brought forward now rather than a little bit along the way?
Sure. Well, we just actually hung the last piece of precast on this building for phase 1 30 days ago. So there has been, it's taken that long to find out what the full magnitude of the delay would be and the full amount of costs. This has been discussed in construction meetings, progress meetings that we've had along the way back from when this first started back in March or February. So, yes, that has been discussed in those meetings, and like I said, the last piece of precast was hung about 30 days ago, so it's taken a couple of weeks to get all the costs and everything together, and that's why it's not like we had these costs 6 months ago. We didn't know what the extent of the delay would be, so it's been in the last 30 days.
Has there ever been a day when there was no work done
On the project?
on the project?
Greg, you can answer that. I don't think there's been a day that there's not been any
Well,
work.
hey, use the mic, Greg, please. Thank you.
I don't recall other than a Sunday.
Just regular
but-
work days?
Yeah, yeah, but there was quite a few Saturdays folks work. Now, our crew sizes did vary, various trades. One time the mason was out, with COVID, and electricians were out, the whole crew, the whole company on the job site. So, that kind of But no, every day we've had guys working. I mean, you know, even today, you know, it's crummy outside, but everybody's, you know, guys working outside, you know, doing everything that we possibly can. So we've not,
So there hasn't been any 0 work days, regular through the week work days.
no, but we've gone down from, you know, productive days, how, I'm gonna call them that, where you typically you're running 100 guys and then you're down to 20. I mean, that's substantial workforce that you're down due to COVID. You know, all it takes, you know, a lot of these guys, they ride together. You know, the Mason, he travels in a van from Fort Smith. Boom, you get one guy or contact tracing, they're done.
But if those guys don't show up, you're not paying them, right?
No,
Okay.
well, when they're
That's-
putting
it
work
affects
in
time.
place, yes. But that's lost time. I've lost that time. I'm not being productive. I can't, you know, they're not getting building enclosed.
So that affects the length of the project, is
Yes,
what you're saying.
yes.
I understand it affects the length of the project. I don't understand how that increases your overhead. If you're not paying the people for showing up, yet you're charging us for overhead and extra, I'm sorry, I'm dense.
Mike, it's not the subcontractors. It is our staff and our crew that has been there during this time that we've had to continue to pay our salaries, and we're not able to get as much productivity as we've needed to get because
But isn't that a
of-
management decision you made? If you didn't have that many, if you had that many supervisory personnel, but not that many people on the job, isn't that a management decision you made?
I can't send my supervision home and not
No,
pay 'em.
because the city's gonna pay for it. That doesn't make sense.
That is not true. I mean, I've got salaried personnel there, Mike, that
I
I've got,
understand.
that I've got to continue to pay. And if there are, once again, if there's delays beyond our control that we can't
Okay.
predict, I shouldn't be held accountable for that if it's beyond my control.
Mike, I just want to add one thing.
Pull your, if you're comfortable. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Roy.
Just want to add one thing about that. Milestone did keep those team members on board, and we were actively working with them, changing the schedule and changing the sequence of work to save time, so the impact was less on the job. So that was an ongoing process. So in many ways, you know, time was lost due to the interruption of the precast, the quarantining, the extra work. But let me just see if I can help.
And those precasts, where are they made?
They're made in Mississippi, and they
Is
have
that
to
the
be.
same town you're from?
It is. It
Okay.
is. And we actually went to the plant and inspected the plant and acted as Milestone's eyes to try to track the problem and try to help report to them what was happening, because we needed to know every day how many precast panels were being poured. Let me just see if I can help on the schedule just for a second. Sam said that the panels should have started to been delivered and erected in April and May. That would have let the building be enclosed by September. And by September, that meant all the interior work could be finished. HVAC units could be fired up. You could have a warm building as we go into the winter. The building is still not enclosed, and those units are still not operating, and the interior is still not warm. So that's a measure of the delay. If it was enclosed in September, then the schedule, you know, would have been much closer to where it should have been. But we're still not enclosed, and we're still trying to get to that point.
How many panels, Roy, do you recall right off? How many panels are in phase one?
132 or 137.
Yeah.
Come anywhere from 2 to 5 on a truck, maybe?
Yeah, and as soon as they get here, they were erecting them,
Right.
so. And then, you know, and there's other costs that they're not reporting. The precast would get 2 trucks and it'd put 4 panels up, and then they wouldn't get a truck for a week. Well, that crane is sitting there and they're paying for it.
Right.
So there's other costs that are involved in the delay that are not being put forward here. I think there's a lot being eaten here behind me in terms of trying to make a good project for the city of Springdale.
Which goes back to the question I had for you when we first met. Are we sharing the pain here? Or is it all falling on the taxpayers of Springdale? And it's clear that it's not.
What's clear?
It's clear that it's not, just based on what we just heard.
I think the question about paying
eating
for
other
time,
costs.
you're not actually paying for time. What you're paying for is the supervision, the trailers, the equipment, to make sure that the project is staffed to its completion. So that they were 50% productive, or maybe less during a big portion of the project. Still making progress, still changing the schedule, still building an enclosure wall around the outside so some work could get done on the inside. But the building today is still not enclosed. Finishes can't get done on time. It's still out of sequence.
So is there going to be, are you going to be coming, Sam, or will you be coming back to us again in a year, wanting more cost and overhead for delays? Still not done. We're still in the COVID.
No, and for this reason.
Why are you doing it? Why are you bringing it to us now instead of at the end of the construction project?
Because, why am I bringing it to you now? Because we just finished erecting the last piece of precast so we could identify what that delay is and how much that money and time is. Now, if you're asking me if we're going to have...
What if you make up some time, though, during the rest of the project, you speed everything up and you
Then
do
we
really
don't,
well?
we don't pay till the end. This, I've made clear from the beginning.
But we're approving it right now, though, is what
You're
you're asking.
appropriating it. But that doesn't mean, when we get to the end of this, we could have contingency left in phase. I mean, there's a lot of could-bes here. We don't know, but we've got to appropriate the money, and then we settle up at the end.
Why do we have to appropriate it now?
Wyman?
What was the question?
The question is, why are we appropriating this payment now?
We're finishing up phase one and we have to keep the cost of phase one and phase two separate because of the ballot title.
One is construction and one is renovation.
Right, and we have to maintain separate records of those, and so we're trying to get ready to close out phase one.
Okay.
And the way the contract does read too is 100% of all savings that are recognized at the end of the project do return back to the city of Springdale. 100%. There's not any kind of savings split. There's nothing that we gain from that. So we have a contingency for phase two, to answer your question. I'm not naive enough to think that we're going to go all through phase two and not have any kind of change or anything that's going to be an issue or problem. That's what construction is. There's going to be some issues, there's going to be problems. If you're asking me if I think the contingency is ample and sufficient to handle any of the changes that come up, yes, I do feel comfortable in that. I do not anticipate any kind of longer delays like what we're having. The balance of the precast panels for phase two will be delivered in May when we're starting. The steel will be here in May when we're going to be starting that as well, or 1st of June. So no, I don't anticipate that.
That part of that goes back to I think the point Roy made back in committee, that there were a lot more unknowns and complications when you're talking about a police department, an IT department, dispatch. There are a lot more expensive variables than there will be in phase two, which is basically an office building.
That's correct.
Plus, we're already working some of phase two and phase one.
That is correct.
Right.
Mayor, at any time, did the city shut down during this pandemic?
We didn't shut down. We had some people working from home, Brian. Can't tell you what percentage. Had quite a few actually at one time, any that could. But we really tried to keep our people working. The city did not shut down, no.
Right.
But
And-
we.
And I commend
But our
you and our
workforce.
city for that.
Yeah, our workforce was affected, and
Right.
not necessarily because of COVID positives, but because of quarantines.
Right.
That can be as big actually a bigger issue to deal with than what positives you have, from a workforce standpoint. We've got a motion, but we do have a motion and a second.
Got a follow-up question with Sam,
Yeah.
Sam and Greg. And this is kind of switching gears here, but it's part of the same resolution. So to the south addition that we're about to vote on, can you go into the details as to what that entails? Because, we are spending $500,000 on that, so.
Greg, or?
Sure, sure. I mean, we're adding, structural steel. You got your brick, your masonry work, your interior finishes. You've got HVAC, electrical work. So, I mean, you're extending that building. We're adding a whole nother bay, another 22 feet to the building. So basically the same costs that you have. There's nothing special about that space, or I should say, nothing, no heavy IT or.
Constructionally speaking.
Yes,
Yeah.
constructionally speaking, yes. There's no high ticket, finishes or anything of that nature. It's just the old brick and mortar and just continuing that on through the end of the building.
So
Let me just add too, we've talked about it, I think I
Yeah.
talked about it only as a community room. It's actually a break room for the city and a fitness center for the city, which the city employees asked for early on in the process of programming the building. It also adds maintenance space for the facilities department. So it's actually really augments the city staff, employees, and the community. So it is more than just a community room. It's a fitness center, break room, meeting space for the city, and a maintenance facility.
There's also a fitness center in the police building, right?
There's a small
For the
one.
police.
that-
To serve the police department.
And that's the training program, and
And
it's
who all
hard,
will be housed in here?
city employees in this side of the building.
What departments? What departments will be in
It's
here?
going to be, it's going to be.
All of them.
Everybody except Parks and Public Works, right, at Wyman, and Fire Department.
And
Yeah, I know, but
And Mike, as we were planning the building, there was always a question about the police being able to share their facility with the city employees.
Yeah, I understand that doing that, but,
Yeah.
I just,
I guess technically Parks has one too, in their rec center, so.
why
So
couldn't the city employees?
503,000 for the extended southern portion. There won't be any additional change order costs at the end of this project or any time and extended overhead cost as a result? That's all built into that 503, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
What
Yes,
about
sir.
architecture fees?
No, sir, not the architect fees.
That's just y'all's cost?
Yes, sir.
So there might be some more architecture fees that we hadn't talked about yet? There won't be? It's already been designed?
It's already designed.
Yeah, it was designed as part of the original project, even though it was beyond the scope of what we did. We added it, did the work. There's a little bit of modification work we've done as well, but
What about time?
no more time for us on that.
So that's it, basically, unless we have weird weather or COVID gets worse.
I think the planning and scheduling for the project, I've been working with Milestone Superintendent. He's got a very aggressive plan to tackle Phase 2. They're thinking it out carefully and sequentially, and we're supporting that work and that thinking with how we're reviewing the shop drawings and preparing the submittals, the stuff that we do to support that work that's ongoing. So no additional time beyond the request today unless we hit get another pandemic.
Well, and the reason I was asking about the extension was when it was presented last week, it was as a multi-purpose room type idea. Now I'm hearing it's different uses, which is fine, but
Well, there's an upstairs.
yeah. And so Will that allow room for grow, do we still have plenty of space to grow within the new?
It will add to growth for future years. I don't foresee us needing it in a long time for office, but
But the potential's there.
but it's there, and the downstairs for the community room is also something that can be sealed off, so that if there's a group that wants to meet in the room, we don't have to be concerned about other parts of the building.
And that's the way it was pitched last week, was that
Yeah.
it was just mostly that room. But and the reason I ask is, one, it is $500,000 of taxpayer dollars, but the biggest concern is, and when we discussed this, was when we moved into this building, it was full when we moved in, and we're not going to stop growing in this city or Northwest Arkansas. So having the potential to grow into this building is important with this $500,000.
We've got a lot of growth already programmed in with what we were already building.
Yeah.
But this will just be this will be seen probably long after I'm gone.
And there's one more,
And underground,
I'm
this
un-
will be seen as a smart move.
I'm under-explaining this addition, because the other thing that's happening is the mechanical room that is actually not in the addition, currently, it's in the other side. This alternate moves that mechanical room into the addition, and that frees up expansion space in the administrative offices, which is really where we needed it. So it's a smart move. All totaled, it's about $141 a square foot. And it's the best money spent for the city, I think.
Just to reiterate what was said, we're saving over $100,000, potentially even much more, depending on when it's built, depending on the economy and future issues that, such as steel prices, if we do this now.
Well, we are getting, weekly increases on material prices. Steel, glass, aluminum. If you were to build this, and this is just my opinion, but if you were not to do this now and do it later, 2 years down the road, it would be $1 million instead of $500,000. Prices are going up and we are not adding any additional supervision on for that either. We're going to be already there working. We're extending it 20 feet, so we are not adding any additional supervision. If you come back and do it 2 years from now or whenever, you're going to be paying for a whole nother mobilization, supervision, everything. And so that's going to add to that cost as well. So that's just my opinion.
So Ernest, I have a question. If this doesn't pass, and are we in breach of contract?
There's so many moving parts to this. We certainly would have to go back, not just us, but a lot of folks would have to go back to the drawing board, not to mention the message that it might send.
And that would be a cost to the city as well.
Potentially.
It would be a cost to every project we bid for many years.
Okay, thank you.
On the concrete panels, when y'all first knew that there was going to be a delay, did y'all receive any kind of estimated time in which production would be ramped up?
From our supplier, is that what
Yes.
you're asking?
Yes.
He sent a written notification, and I believe at that point it was, and this was his best guess, was going to be about 60 days, if I'm remembering that correctly. And that was forwarded on to the architect in the city as well. Now that was early on when nobody knows what's going to happen with this and how many people are going to be, and I think that may have even been before the governor shut down the state.
Yeah, we knew that they were going to have to shut down, but it was just like everything else with COVID, Brian. You don't know for how long.
Right.
And
But they gave you a good guesstimate of 60 days?
That's what they said. Was
I mean, it's not a good guesstimate. Nobody can guess. That's what, they're saying, okay, 60, 90 days at this time. I mean, you can't, last pandemic was 1918, so nobody's got any experience with a pandemic. So that's why
Right.
they said, 60 to 90 days, and I was like,
So I'm trying to, I'm sold on the top three numbers. It's at 426 and I'm still struggling with. So if they said, hey, man, it looks like it's going to be 60 days before we can get these panels even getting back going. On your end, could there have been some changes on your end to continue on with the work, maybe not have that equipment rental out there? Or is the cost of remobilizing that equipment more than it just sitting on the lot?
Yes, when you start, equipment, for example, but when you start, have Hug and Haul come get all this equipment, then you tell them to bring it back, 30, 60 days down the road, you're going to get hit again for mobilization. If you send your subcontractors off, say, all right, guys, Mr. Mason, go ahead and leave. We're going to shut it down 60, 90 days. I don't know, electrician. We send everybody off. When we decide to start back up, are they going to be available? Are the materials that they need to get still available? Has that cost risen? I don't know. So,
But I guess to that point, really the only individual or the only group that can shut it down would really be the owner, right?
yes,
And so, and the owner, the city never said, hey, we're shutting down.
that's correct. Or the governor,
Right.
like they did in Mississippi, the governor shut down the state.
So other avenues in your schedule can be done to help offset to continue the production of the building. And that's just where I'm having the most difficult time is there are adjustments that have to be made even in unforeseen circumstances.
Yes, sir, and that's what we did with the visqueen plastic walls we did around the perimeter. Typically you build your exterior wall and you put a roof on it, and then you do the interior. Well, we did it backwards. We put the roof on the building out to the perimeter walls and built plastic walls and enclosed everything so we can continue on with work inside the building. We were still doing everything we possibly could. We start the mason laying brick before we spray foam the backside of the panels. I mean, there were so many steps that were just backwards in building a building. And, if we didn't do what we were doing now, you'd have a vacant shell of a building. And now we'd start doing the process that we've been going through, like taking, for example, Chief Peters, the police department. We take them through the facility saying, here's this space, here's that space. Well, we'd be even further behind the 8 ball with all the, because people don't realize you're looking at a set of plans and you actually go inside a building and you see the walls for the first time. I hate to use Chief Peters, the PD as an example, but once we get walls up, that's when they start noticing, hey, this is not how this should really flow. And so we'd be even further behind had we not enclosed the building in visqueen.
And I said this in our committee meeting that I was very impressed on how your superintendent did all that. He said, hey, we got an issue, and they continued to work. And so the work never stopped. The work continued. And so that's where, getting back to what Mike was talking about earlier, we're just trying to wrap our heads around the work is continuing. The work is continuing.
Yes, but not how it should, though. I mean, we're doing everything we can to keep work moving forward. Even on the exterior of the building, we've done things, instead of, using your typical hillside material, we've used the white rock, they call it, down at Sharps. It cost a little bit more. I didn't charge anybody for that, just so we can continue on with the weather. We had gas lines to contend with. Everybody's touching on COVID. Sure, that's a big piece of it. But, it was all the unforeseen conditions. I mean, I just touched on a few of them last week. But like the gas line, we had a live gas line running through the building, running north to south, coming off of Huntsville, that fed this facility. It took them, the gas company, we had to dig the ditch so we could install it. We had that up on braces so we could pour the slab, up out of the ground. And then the gas company, we ended up hiring a vac truck, a large vac truck, to come in and do spot checks, trying to find utilities. Water lines, water company was like, I have no idea where that water line goes. Gas company 5 different individuals come out, their gas lines, they're saying it's going this way. Well, we start to get a vac truck and start digging, well, it doesn't go that way, it goes this way. So I mean, there's just a multitude of things that we encountered that we worked around. You know, everybody's saying COVID, yes, that's a big piece of it, not only for the precast panels, but for the manpower on the job site. But had we not enclosed it, you know, we're doing everything we can to keep the ball rolling. And had we not taken Chief Peters, Judge Harper in there, you know, to let them see their workspaces, we'd be even further behind. We'd be like, oh, you know, in a world of hurt, trying to get with Roy, trying to revise drawings and keeping progress moving forward. I'm feeling that we're ahead of the game right now, in all things considered, you know, where we're at. I mean, rolling into phase 2, you know, steel's gonna be here. We don't have to worry about shop drawings. It's getting fabricated right now. Precast panels are gonna be here June 1st. If you go by the bus barn, there should be half dozen Connexes down there. That's full of light fixtures, plumbing fixtures. I mean, for phase 2. So, I mean, we've got all the materials here that we're trying to think ahead to get everything here to make phase 2 go smoother. But it's unfortunate in the situation that we're in now, you know, do all, you know, all that lost time. So, I don't even know if I answered your question. I got a little long-winded there. So. And, sorry, and moving forward, you know, if you don't mind me saying, you know, I offered up, you know, when you guys approved my pay application, I'm gonna be here to give you guys a monthly update, good, bad, indifferent. You could ask me any kind of questions. I'll tell you what, you know, hey, we had a great month, or no, we had a crappy month. This is what happened. So then that way, you know, you guys can hear it from the horse's mouth, you know, what's happening out there, and you can ask me anything you want.
Just throwing this out there, is there any way that we could separate the time and extended overhead cost out of this change order? Vote on the other items, come back to this, maybe after we have committee meetings where we can talk about it more, discuss it. Is that an option? Is that legally an option?
Well, that's not, we have a motion and a second for the way it is.
Have to modify the motion.
I don't know what all that's out of my world. I'm not sure what all that would involve. I'm not sure if that's a proper thing to do or not. I understand the question. I think the time is what it is, and you know, in any project, there's a certain amount of respect and trust that and I've got that. If y'all deserve to have your questions answered though, and I think they've done a good job of trying to answer them. So and if somebody wants to change the motion, I'm not even sure exactly what it would say, but I think I understand your point, Brian.
So Amelia made the motion, and is there a second?
Yes. Other questions or comments?
So with the motion in place right now, if we vote no on it and turn it down, then what? I know what.
I'll bring it back in 2 weeks is one thing. I don't know what we do. We've got a building out here that, and we've got a construction company and an architect who I believe are doing their dead level best. And they've taken a lot of things on their own, costs on their own, and eaten a lot of costs. And I know the architect has, and I know the contractor has. We've got another phase, and I would hate to do anything that would jeopardize this relationship, or as I mentioned earlier, relationships with future contractors and architects, because I guarantee you, these folks talk to each other. And I don't think that's treating them right.
Why were you shaking your head, Ernest?
We have a comment here.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Susan Pennington, 3839 Derrick Lane in Springdale. I have a question pertaining to us as citizens of Springdale. Or how are we able to get the details about the contractor, the expenses listed, and the bid, and all of that, versus the amount that is going over that? All of this details that we were talking about.
We can give you anything, it's all public information. If you
Okay.
if you know what you'd like, then you can contact my office or the city attorney's office, and we'll get you that information.
Okay. all right.
Okay?
Thank you.
So Ernest, you were shaking your head when Mark asked what happens if we vote no, and what's your
Like,
concern
I think
there?
Amelia asked the same question. I mean, and I think the mayor made a good point. You know,
Well, but contractually, I don't really care what other people think, you know, as long as we're within the contract, that's my concern.
Well, that's my concern as well, too.
Right, and that's what I'm asking you.
Sometimes, you know, like, I always talk about rezonings, I don't have a dog in the hunt decision that's made as long as I can defend it. And the honest answer is, I don't know. I'd probably have to sit down with Wyman and Mr. Hollis and Mr. Decker and see where this leaves us. I just don't know.
I guess what I'm asking though, I'm going to come back to my question again. Under the contract, are we obligated for this money?
I believe that they have given reasonable cause for the extensions and for the change order that they've submitted. I think they've provided it in really good detail as well.
So we haven't seen any detail of the time and extended overhead numbers.
Well,
Have you seen them?
I've seen what you've seen, and I've heard what they've said tonight.
But we haven't seen any detail of this breakdown, is my point.
But the question to me was, is it justifiable under the contract? The answer, in my opinion, is legally yes, under the general conditions.
All right. Do you have something else you want to say, Roy? I'm going to call for a vote.
I do. I think we all feel responsible to you all and responsible to the citizens of Springdale. And we've been with you a long time, all of us have, Milestone, Duval Decker. And this is an important facility for the city of Springdale, both now for your public safety, your administration, the services that it provides to all the citizens, and it's a big project. And this has been an extraordinarily difficult year for all of us. As the mayor's first question to me, when we got all the numbers together, calculated all the time and the cost, both the contractors and ours, is why should the city of Springdale, why should the citizens of Springdale pay for this change order? And is the city bearing all the cost? And the city is not. There have been many, many items in our practice that we've, you know, it's just part of the project and we've just contributed them. We helped with all the move documents in detail to move people around and it's part of the work. We're here helping the city achieve.
And that's no small thing, by the way. You can ask Colby because he's been the point of contact on that. And when you're talking about moving this many departments, sometimes two times, and what furniture to reuse, where do you put it, measuring rooms, what'll fit where, that's not an insignificant contribution.
We know where every piece of furniture is now and where it goes later.
Right.
We hope that it still goes there later. I just want you all, I think we feel your frustration about this coming on you all at once. And I think I heard Greg say he would be here each month to report on and I'll commit to be here each month with you. To be sure that you are really up and up on the information, progress, the trials and tribulations. My job for you as your agent to manage the quality and the process of the construction contract is to stand here today and tell you that I have scrutinized the time extension, and I've scrutinized the cost that is being proposed to man the job to the end. Time is lost. They've not been able to be as productive as they should have been. That building you should be in that building darn near now. So we lost time. And that means the project has to go longer. So the cost is to cover the expenses of the management and the staff and the planning to finish out the project. It's the extended time. And it's true with us too. We got to cover your job. We got to be sure we're doing what the citizens and what you, as the city, you've asked us to do to the highest ability of our professional skill, and make sure the quality is there. This, as Greg said, this delay could have been much worse. And it's not. This, as the mayor said earlier, we're 65% through the project, and this is a 2% increase. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm proud of that, actually, given that this is a year of a pandemic. And we've managed to hold the cost and hold the time as tightly as we could. And that's not me, that's these guys out here and the superintendent. I realize this is hard, but we're with you, and we're trying to do the best possible job we can for the citizens every single day. And we've got a staff of 4 people in our office supporting the project. I want to say one last thing about the extended time and cost. I know, because I've looked at Greg's numbers, that he's not covering all his costs. Ours, I have 1 staff member we're trying to cover, not 4. We're just trying to not lose money to be sure we're still doing the job for Springdale. Nobody's making money here. In a pandemic year, I think we're all just trying to do the best job we can and honor our commitment to the city of Springdale and the citizens. So I feel compelled to say that, and thank you for letting me
Thanks, Roy.
share my feelings, but we're here with you.
Colby, you got it.
Mayor, one of the things that we can do is forward the updates that we get from Milestone each week to the council. I can make sure that they get a copy of that. And I think any major change orders that we see coming down the pipeline, if we know about those, we can ensure that we can let the council know about that as well.
We can alert them, both positive and negative change orders.
Sure.
But keep in mind, at the end of the day, that may be included in the contingency, and it may not tell you what the bottom line's going to be, but you're at least aware of the change orders.
Sure. And
Yeah.
for instance, there's even one that will be coming down the pipeline has to do with the circuits that we install. It's actually going to save us money. And so we can make sure that all of you know that information too, and open up those lines of communication, if that'll help.
Right. All right, Denise, I think we're ready to vote.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Howe.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
No.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Carry 7-1.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, it's back to you.
Thank you. The item 10E, I am positive, Mayor. That was forwarded without recommendation. I can turn my computer back on.
I agree.
Has to do with additional monies for the architect. Similar discussion concerning delays and additional expenses the architect incurred. The title to that resolution was a resolution authorizing the execution of amendment to an architecture contract for the Springdale Municipal Campus Project Number 18BPC1 and 18BPC2. That amendment would it'd be an additional cost of $317,241. That was forwarded without recommendation.
Roy, would you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
And this is more for our folks, maybe residents in here or people watching. You know, before I got this job, I had a perception of an architect's work, and it was pretty pictures on a piece of paper that showed what a building was going to look like. Would you just, without going into a lot of detail, because I've got plans in my office that thick of drawings, but also touch on the architect's responsibility, as you've said, you're our watchman.
That's right.
over the contractor to verify when adjustments need to be made. Can you just briefly touch on that so everyone has there may be others like I was, and I still don't understand it all, who probably would benefit from a little better idea of what an architect's role is in a project this size.
Sure. And maybe I'll talk about it just briefly by talking about what we've been through.
Right.
We were brought on board in 2017. In May of 2017, to be the architect that led the process to really define what your public facility was, the municipal facility and public safety building, and then to design it, and then to document the work and translate it for construction. I just want to define it meant that we spent most of that summer meeting with every department 2 and 3 times, listening to every need that they had, putting plans up on the screen of how big is your office, how big should it be, how does it function with furniture. And Denise was here, Ernest was here, every department in the police was asked, met separately, administration planning. That went on all summer, and we documented every incremental space, every piece of furniture, every security relationship, everything that was required of the building, its criticality, how it has to perform in an emergency, what requirements the police building has different from the administration building. So that process we call programming.
And part of your work also was subbing some work out to subject matter experts.
Yep. We had
such
specialists.
as Dewberry for police.
Yep. We had a public safety specialist that we hired and paid for, that came in that knew everything about police departments, detention. We had a court consultant that helped us with the courtroom with Judge Harper and Sue in the courtroom. So it was really a team of experts investigating what is the best definition of the facility for you. So we finished that, and then we started designing the building, and we worked through your master plan, through the city requirements, the zoning requirements, and with the city and in partnership, actually with all the departments having input on the design, we got to a set of plans and renderings that the city could then put before the voters for the bond vote. And we then stopped. We waited for the bond vote. And those drawings were very smart. They had all of those requirements worked out in them. They were pretty pictures, but they were very smart. They had all the technical. I know you said be quick, but you give me this kind of opportunity.
You traveled a long way. You deserve a little extra time.
I got to be back on a plane tomorrow morning. So after the bond approval, we started our second phase of work, the design development, which is where we bring in all the engineers. Everything gets sized, everything gets calculated, the structure starts to be defined. We work on all the materials. The building becomes a more technical set of drawings. It's still not yet ready for construction, but at that point, Milestone joined the team, and they began estimating. They began counseling us on construction logic and logistics, and we started working together to really craft the building and stay within the funds available. We got to the point of the end of design development, which is really a milestone of, I've always liked their name.
No pun intended.
A milestone of checking where we are. And then that got presented and checked by all the departments again, to be sure we had the technical performance of the building. And then what happens is what I like to say is we go from English to French, because we're no longer looking at pretty drawings or even drawings that we can talk to easily with the department heads. We translate everything into the language of construction. So we're talking about wall sections and assemblies and bolts and mechanical systems and grills and how it all goes together and how it performs. And that's when we do most of our work. That's the largest chunk of work we do. And that involves a very large team of consultants, not just the architect. All the specialists are participating in that process. We're coordinating it, we're pulling it all together, we're checking everything, and we're making sure that the construction documents are within budget. Milestone's helping us check, and they're counseling us. We're making changes as we go. We make changes in those drawings and the value of the construction all the way to the end of that phase. But when we finish the construction drawings, we have a detailed set of drawings that's buildable. We've gone through any VE work we had to do to be sure we stayed in budget.
Would that have been, refresh my memory, at this point, would we have already taken this off this room?
Yes.
Did that come later in the process?
That was in that process where we identified it as an option.
Okay.
That's exactly when that happened.
Okay.
Right. Because we're looking for the best value, the most durable building, and the most flexible for the future. So that all that planning is going into it. We had a groundbreaking with visitors and contractor and architect, and that was August 2019. And then we start construction. And then as the architect, our role changes from starting out with conversations and pretty drawings to construction drawings. Our role changes to facilitate, support, and check the construction work. So we are always your agent. We're your eyes and ears on the construction side. And we're also responsible for making sure that Milestone can be as successful as possible. So we have a double role: support and facilitate the construction every single day. Matt Cadle's over there and knows this project better than almost anyone. Maybe not the superintendent, he's getting up there now, but has worked on every detail of this project since that point. And we have, our team is responsible for answering questions, requests for information, producing clarification drawings for any changes or anything that's just discovered that needs more work or more drawings. And then we're, of course, visiting the site every couple weeks or more to check the work, to work with the contractor on every stage and their whole staff, and also answer subcontractor questions. That is all to deliver a building to the citizens of Springdale that performs to the degree and serves the citizens as was conceived in those conversations with all the departments. The building started with the departments and ends with them occupying their space. And our job along the way is to shepherd that process from concept through the very detailed technical work to make it happen. How was that?
That helps, thank you. Helps me, and I bet it helped some people at home.
Along the way, we make a lot of drawings, and we try not to burn so many trees. Can I answer any questions about our proposal? I'd like to offer that some of the work is engineering to produce those changes. Some of the work is our time to produce those drawings, those clarification drawings. If you look at our contract, we're responsible for doing that sort of work, and when it's outside the scope of what we originally did, that's the only time it really is a change that we charge fee for. I'll mention that, when we started the project, it was a much smaller project with a smaller budget. We didn't change our fee, despite the fact that in those conversations, clearly the city of Springdale needed a bigger, more complex building. We didn't change our fee.
So you're asking for additional compensation of $317,000 some odd dollars. Yeah. And that includes payment for your costs caused by owner-requested change orders,
Some, yep.
some.
That's the 120,000 of our time and the 61,000 of engineering time that we've already paid.
Okay, that's part of that 317?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing is for additional services due to delays. You called it construction extended time. I've averaged, I've approximately 135,000 for that, out of the 317, correct?
That's correct. And if you know, I put the hours there, our projected hours, because I'm only charging $81 an hour for that time, not the full rate of our whole team. We're trying to.
What is it about the delays that cost you extra money, or that we're having to pay for?
So I'm your agent. I'm responsible to you for this building functioning to the level of our contract and our responsibility. Part of that responsibility is overseeing and inspecting the construction. So in order for me to fulfill my contract with you, I've got to be here during the construction period. So if the construction period expands, I've got to cover that. Now, in our original contract, we had 24 months of construction time budgeted, which was what everybody anticipated would be the construction time for the contract. If we stayed within 24 months, I'd never ask for more time or more fee for more time. We're now expanding beyond the 24 months that were anticipated and codified in our contract. It's the only reason. I just have to cover our staff costs. I gotta be sure I'm here, Matt's here, Brett's here, and I can get my engineers here.
Okay, so I asked Ernest, our city attorney's office, the same question that I asked before, and the problem that I had before is I was not provided with a particular document that apparently was the most important document, the conditions of contract. I don't think your contract had a conditions of contract, that an attachment that dealt with this issue, did it?
No, it's actually in the contract.
Okay, actually in the contract. So then I'll turn to the city attorney. And Ernest, what he's saying is, had it stayed within 24 months, his fee would have been a certain amount. Well, it went past 24 months. Under the contract, are we obligated to pay for additional services because it went past 24 months?
Well, it's tied to what you've already passed. As you mentioned, it's part of.
No, his contract's tied to that?
Well, what you already passed necessarily entails him involving more expenses because they're overseeing the entire process. And it's actually, and it's divided between the new building and the renovation. Something else to keep in mind.
But now, the architect promised to do this, to do the project, and to be paid so much for it. Does the fact that it took longer than he expected obligate us to pay if he agreed to do the project?
It's no different than the
No,
contractor.
no, I
because if
think
you
the- I
extend
think
the
the contractor
contractor,
had
you're
a-
extending their
I
responsibilities
think
as
the
well.
contractor had specific language that dealt with it.
It talks about, once time limits are established, they shall not, except for reasonable cause, be exceeded. That's in the architect's contract. Roy, correct me if I'm wrong. But it's certainly tied to the construction. I mean, you can't extend the construction part without extending the construction manager.
Except that the contractor had language in his contract that obligated us.
And so does Roy.
That's what I'm asking, is there?
Yes. 3.6.1.3. The architect's responsibility to provide construction phase services commences with the award of the contract for construction and terminates on the date the architect issues the final certificate for payment. So it ties to the term to completion. The architect shall visit the site at intervals appropriate to, the work compels me to service your contract. If you vote no, I've still got to be here, obviously, but it would hurt. So,
It kind of goes back to just treating them right, I think.
Well,
I know, it's money.
it's, contract's a contract, and I apologize for that.
If you extend, we extend the length, we've already said now that we've approved the length, extending the length of the construction. If the architect has to be involved for the duration of the construction, then it stands to reason that they're going to have to spread out their time and spend more time here. It's
He
just
said-
paying them for
His
being.
contract says he'd do that for a certain amount of money, though.
Was the 24 months not tied to that?
yeah, the 24 months is the term for
Right.
our responsibility
Right.
set in the contract. Beyond that, our contract does allow for additional services.
Is that true, Ernest?
Yes.
3.6, 1.3 does say that.
It's part and parcel of what's already been approved for the contractor. It follows as of necessity.
As part
Otherwise,
of,
you've got a contractor working without any oversight.
as part of our proposal, there's $11,000 worth of travel. That's really to cover Matt and Brett come in every 2 weeks. I'm committed to come to your council meetings once a month with Greg at no cost.
What it would cost us to have you not come?
Mike, that's a good dig from a long time ago. Touche. So, for those of you that are new, I talk too much. Mike's catching me.
Well, to save you money, you can zoom in still, right? I mean, I'm not going to hold you to the fire to be here, but you can be here on the.
We do Zoom meetings also
yeah.
already.
I appreciate that, but I want you to understand that we're committed to you and the city of Springdale and have been since the start of the project, so.
So if the schedule goes on like we hope it is for the duration of Phase 2, do you expect any additional fees, any additional dollars coming out?
No. I mean, I think we're reconciling right now for the rest of the project.
So this is for the rest of the project, not for the weather delays and
Part
unexpected.
and parcel of it
There's
is.
all of that is,
That
all that
catches
is
you up.
caused an extension, so.
Including the rest of the project.
Yeah. All of, everything we talked about has caused an extension, a necessary extension to the finish date. I got to get you to the finish date with this team behind me.
How many people do you have, your firm, here every day during construction?
We come every 2 weeks for a couple days. Brett and Matt are here every couple days, and then we have one of our consultants coming by whenever we need to be on site.
But there's not anybody watching the project every day?
We are in contact with the contractor every day, but there's not necessarily somebody here every day.
Right.
But anytime there's anything critical to oversee, anytime there's an inspection, we make a special trip. And that's without regard to our budget.
I'm going to make a motion that the resolution pass. On 10E.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions or discussion? I'll give you a little more time.
Roy doesn't need more time.
How do you, how were we billed the 123,000? What was that for?
The 123,000, that's for the time that we have not yet billed. That's coming. As
No.
we-
Of the 317, I'm sorry, let me look at, page again. Of the 317,000, 123.5 is for, so that's for future? Is that what you just said?
The 123.5 is for the additional time of 9.5 months.
Yeah. How was that calculated? What was that for? What did you do? I understand you sent people up here and are asking for travel expenses, but
That's an increase in our fee so that we can actually bill you incrementally as the work progresses. So we haven't.
what?
I'm sorry?
You can do what? Because they're not working like they thought they should have been during those 9 months, and
We were still coming up here. We were working. We weren't as productive. We were working on changing the sequence of work. We were doing all sorts of different things. We were still supporting the project. That money increases my contract so I can cover the project, be your agent for an additional 9.5 months. So I don't bill for that money until, later, sometime next summer, that money will kick in to get me to the end of the project. So that money is not billable at this point. It gets billed as we need it later in the project.
Not to complicate things, but I do think it's important for the residents of Springdale to know and give credit where credit's due, is that up until this point, the city of Springdale hasn't paid you anything.
That's correct.
We received a $3.1 million Walton Family Foundation grant that paid for the design and the oversight of this project for that 24-month period. So I feel obligated to mention that. But they don't ask for credit, but they've made this project possible by this being part of a design excellence program.
So if this resolution passes, what amount of money is owed now and what amount of money is owed in the next budget?
We now, some of this money we've already paid, but nevertheless, we now still bill in relation to the construction progress. So, it'll be billed in small increments going forward. It won't be, there's not a big check. It's every month we're billing based on our time, and it allows us to get to the end of the 9.5 months. So I don't know when your budget is, so I don't know if I'm answering that correctly. Because I think it'll go into your next year, all right?
Yeah, but this is all future costs.
That's right.
Because your time was figured for the first 2 years of the project.
Right, that's right.
So to answer your question, Brian, what we're asking for in this change order, or this amendment to the contract, is costs because of the extension of time tacked on to the end of the project that they've got to supervise. Clear? Or
So all this money is at the end of the project?
it's to reconcile to the end of the project?
Yes,
Yes.
correct. That's correct.
Because we haven't paid them anything out of our money, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
And so at the end of the project, if it's not the days, then there is a reduction.
That's correct.
So
That's
would that have
correct.
to come back to us as a reduction since we passed this resolution?
That's correct. I mean,
No, we're budgeting,
I think it would just stay in the,
we're budgeting to take 725,552 out of the general fund, which includes all of this, both of these proposals, period.
you're allocating it.
That-
It will be,
yes.
it will be
That's pro-
designated in the budget.
Projected to come out of the general fund,
And then that will
over and
adjust.
above the bond money.
That will adjust depending on how many reductions there are, hopefully. Yeah. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, Denise?
Hal,
Yes?
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
yes,
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you, guys.
for being guilty of Mike catching me say something more.
I thought we were through with it. Golly.
He voted yes.
Just to get you to shut up, but go ahead.
Know how special that is.
I know. We value we value your counsel and your criticism and your help. Thank you.
Thanks, and we will all work together to give y'all more information than you want.
Thank you all.
Yeah, Sam, Roy, and Greg, just reiterating what the mayor was saying, and it's important of how this comes across to other builders and developers in the area. We're not trying to not pay what, and I'm glad this passed, we're not trying not to pay what y'all have earned. We just want clarity and specifics as to what we're paying for, or what the taxpayers are paying for. So thanks for coming.
Yeah. And y'all been to plenty of city council meetings other places, so I know you know I know you know their concerns and their charge and their responsibility as well.
We're just easier, that's all. Don't worry about it.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Jeff, that's everything for you.
That is
isn't
it.
Okay. Item 11, I'm going to turn over to our city attorney.
Thank you. The first item is an ordinance annexing certain lands pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 14-40-501 at SEC. And this is those 9 parcels that are located at the Happerton Don Tyson roundabout.
Move the ordinance passed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone need to speak to these? I know we had an opportunity during the public hearing, but we'll give anybody else an opportunity if they need to. Okay, not seeing anybody. All right, Denise?
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Okay, Ernest, you got the next 3.
I do. The next one is an ordinance to establish and assess a video service provider fee from Ritter Communications Holdings LLC pursuant to the Arkansas Video Service Act and Arkansas Code annotated Section 2319-201 et sec. We, the council, back in November of last year, passed a resolution putting them on notice by statute that the video service provider fee would be assessed. It'll begin, I think it's 45 days after this. I've actually been in communication with someone from this company, so they know this is being voted on tonight. I read the title.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comment or questions?
What all does this entail specifically?
Ernest, why don't you give us a kind of a thumbnail here? Let everybody.
Normally speaking, a public utility, the statutes give us the authority to assess a franchise fee for their being able to utilize our right-of-way for placing the utilities. The legislature actually passed, it's actually called the Video Service Act, and that basically gives these video service providers a statewide authority. And instead of us doing a franchise fee, we assess a video service provider fee. It's a different procedure, but it accomplishes basically the same thing. And they are actually, this particular company is expanding their service territory. And I believe it included former Bethel Heights as well, and Springdale.
So they pay the city a fee in exchange for the right to,
Yes, much like a
the
franchise.
ability to,
Much like a franchise.
to locate in right away. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Denise?
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Carries 8-0. Next item is an ordinance authorizing the city clerk to file a cleanup lien for the removal of overgrown brush and debris on property located within the city of Springdale, Arkansas at 705 Buford Street.
Move the ordinance passed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have someone here to speak to this property?
Did anybody go by there? I didn't have an opportunity to go by there. Did any of the council members go by that address?
I have not. Okay. So this was work that, that we've done
Yes,
to bring the property into compliance, and
Yes.
we're,
we don't like to do this, but we do it if we have to.
yeah. So we put a lien on the property
Correct,
that would be collected when and if the property sells.
correct.
Right, it would just be taken out of their
It's collected as taxes.
sales amount, yeah.
And they were aware that this was happening tonight, I'm
Yes, they
assuming?
were provided notice. It's on page 60 of the.
Yep, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0. The last item is an ordinance accepting for annexation certain property into the city of Springdale, Washington County, Arkansas pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 14-40-609. This is 3 parcels. There's a map on page 67, although you can't really see it that well, coming in from the county into the city at the request of the property owner.
Yeah, the map's not very good. Where is that?
It's up off, I believe, Wilson Cemetery Road.
Yeah, it's west of or east of 265. Once you, it's Bethel, it's what, former Bethel Heights, correct?
No, it's actually in Washington County.
Well, like former Bethel Heights area north of a wagon wheel.
It's actually, well, it's actually further east, I believe, from there. It's right off Wilson Cemetery Road. There's 3 tracks. I apologize that for some reason when they got scanned in, it didn't. Here.
I see it. Come on.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
Can't really tell anything.
Anyone need to speak to this? Okay. Denise?
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. We've got, any comments from council?
A quick comment, Mayor and Ernest. It goes back to what Jeff was talking about and how we're dealing with things here. We had 2 issues where we were referring back to the original contract, but they weren't included in the agenda. So can we include that in the future?
Well, I thought,
I know it's lengthy.
I know that Beth had trouble getting the contract to all go out. We also had hard copies for anybody, and I know, Jeff, I think you were trying to work with Austin to try and get something you couldn't get. So I don't know about that piece that wasn't included. Yeah, I don't know whose oversight that was. So, I don't know. Tell you, we thought we gave everything that we were asking for evidently, but evidently there wasn't, so. We'll always try and do better, but sometimes things are gonna happen, so I apologize for that.
Probably, we should have asked for copies of that at the committee meeting.
I was just thinking.
I asked for it the next day,
Okay?
but I didn't share it. I apologize for that. But believe me, I was having a hard time getting it.
Anything else? City Attorney have anything?
We're ahead by 5 with 1 minute and 18 seconds to go.
What'd you say?
I'm just giving the score of the game.
Oh, okay.
What is
okay.
Ah,
We're ahead 78-73 with 1 minute 18 to go.
Well, that's good.
Get it up on the screen?
Let me mention real quick, well, we gotta talk about our next committee meeting, but I wanna mention real quick, just so y'all will know, I think next council meeting, I think we're gonna recognize our 3 retiring council members. I think we finally found a date everybody could be here. Is it next meeting, Colby? Or is it the second one well, that would be the second one in February.
23rd?
Right, 23rd, yeah. And we need to determine, we need to make a decision. Next Monday, which is our normal committee meeting, is on President's Day. It's up to y'all. We're good either way. City Hall's closed, but we can still have our meeting on Monday night if you want, or you can move it to Tuesday. There's a Planning Commission work session that night, but but they could meet upstairs if they need to. So it's whatever y'all want to do.
I'm fine either way.
Tuesday's fine.
Everybody good with moving it to Tuesday?
I can't be here Tuesday.
That's okay.
Okay.
I can't be here Tuesday. I don't know what else to tell you. You looked at me like you didn't believe me.
Okay, whatever y'all want to do. The majority wants Tuesday, or Tuesday night? Okay, that's what we'll do. We're adjourned, thank you.